Hello. Today you can learn about deflation. It is the opposite of inflation. While we talk about inflation when the general price level rises permanently, deflation is when it falls. You might think of this at first sight as something to be happy about, as you get goods and services cheaper and cheaper. For most people this is good news, but for economists it is a sign of a pre-crash that should be taken seriously. We talk about deflation when the annual inflation rate falls below 0%. For a long time, experts thought that deflation would smooth itself out as market processes naturally progressed. The 1930s crisis disproved this, and as you can see from the map, it is still a phenomenon today. This process is not the same as disinflation. Disinflation is a fall in the rate of inflation, and deflation is a level below 0%. So we also talk about disinflation when the annual increase in the price level falls to 3% instead of say 8%. Since money deflation is below 0%, we could say that this is money improvement. After all, the value of the money held in a cushion at home is then rising steadily without any investment. Let's talk about the cause of deflation. In short, it is caused by a significant fall in demand. The quantity and price of goods in the economy is basically determined by supply and demand. You can see this in this graph. The demand is noted with D, the supply is noted with S, after their English names. If you look at the diagram, you can see that the higher the price of a product, the more sellers are willing to put on the market. A fall in price means only falling profits for a while, and then a cessation of production. Given that nobody would produce at a loss for very long. On the buyer's side, the more expensive the product, the less they are willing to buy, the cheaper the more they are willing to buy. When demand falls due to deflation, the first thing sellers try to do is to lure customers with discounts and promotions. This way they can continue to operate with lower profits. If this phenomenon is massive, then buyers know that prices will fall even further next month. This encourages them to postpone purchases that are not necessities. If you think about it, you would do the same thing. After all, why would you pay €100 for something if a little later it would be only 95, again later it would be only 90, and so on? But this is a self-exciting process. If prices fall, profits fall. Below a certain level, companies start cutting back on the most costly item, wages, so they cut back. The unemployed worker neither spends nor produces. This further reduces both supply and demand. The remaining product can be sold at even lower prices, and this reaches everyone, and the cycle starts all over again. With more and more firms shutting down production, future investment will obviously be discouraged and their own existing workforce will be cut back at some point. A person out of work will not buy anyway, so the firms try to sell to the few remaining buyers. With fewer buyers left, the same volume of product can only be sold at a higher cost of competition, leading to a further fall in prices. This starts the cycle all over again. What is the solution to deflation? One solution is to increase the money supply from the government side. You observed this after the 1930s depression. That's when the big public investments started, a lot of highways, railroads, or anything else that is of public benefit were built, that gives people jobs and therefore disposable income. It was important to create something that did not have to be bought, because then workers would not have spent all their earnings on buying products from local companies. In addition to stimulating demand, the government can also do something on the taxation side. This could be targeted subsidies or even a grace period for paying taxes. During the most severe deflation to date, the 1930s crisis, it was also introduced that interest on loans to businesses reduces corporation tax. If you think about it, it was a revolutionary idea. Until then, the tax authorities were at the beginning of the queue. That may be natural for you, but it's not that natural. The tax authorities were effectively putting the banks ahead of themselves. This, however, is not about the banks, but merely the fact that they will end up with tax revenue either way. In normal operation, the tax authorities will wait patiently, and so every year they will get money from you by collecting less tax by the rate of interest. This small part helps to boost production, which is not so small for a loan on a large investment. This means that it may be the part you need to succeed. I note in parentheses that for those companies where this plan does not work and they are liquidated, the tax authorities will not allow any creditors to come before them. Another solution is to lower the base rate. If there is still possibilities for this, then the interest rate on loans will also fall, so the bank's risk will fall and the borrower's risk will fall, so they can raise funds and invest more easily and cheaply, and thus stimulate demand. As a summary, we can say that deflation has the potential to bring an economy to a complete standstill and, if left unchecked, can grow into a self-exciting process. To address this, stimulus measures are needed to get production moving again. This is supported from both the demand and supply side. It needs entrepreneurs who can produce. If there are people who can produce the product, then it is only a matter of getting people to buy it. Government action, non-productive but public good investment, can inject money into the economy. If there is someone to buy the product, then the companies will hire more workers, produce more, and therefore their workers will buy somewhere. The only thing to watch out for here is not to overshoot inflation targets, because then the economy will need to cool down.